Leagues 4 is finally here with just a few more hours prior to its release. And for my final video, I want to go over what regions I'm going to be picking alongside which relics. A couple things to mention is I don't know which order I am picking my regions in just yet. And then to go with that, I also don't know all of the relics. Obviously, we don't know exactly what some of the in-game relics are, but whenever those do get released tomorrow morning prior to the release of Leagues, I might ultimately change some of my early game strategies. But unless one of those relics does turn out to be something way better than we are currently expecting, this is my current plan. To kick things off, my first region selection is probably going to be Kandarin. And I'll throw this in now, I'm also going to be taking the Magic Relic, which is going to be a completely different path than I've ever went in any league prior. I think I initially took Melee in the first league, and I was very, very close to taking range in this one and going for something with Asgarnia and a ZCB. But ultimately, I decided to go with Mage because that relic just felt too good to pass up. And at the same time, that's kind of how I feel about Kandarin. Kandarin will both give me an Occult and a Tormented Bracelet, two items that are outrageously strong for their item slot. And without worrying about any in-game luck, I'll also have access to the Warp Scepter and then the Trident. Kandarin in itself just seems like an absolute no-brainer if you are going the Mage route. And I think this one's ultimately going to be my first region choice because there tends to be a bunch of early game tasks you can complete in it. Moving on to my second pick, which one might be very obvious, and that's going to be the Desert. One, I just can't wait to do all of the new content in the Desert. Unfortunately, I will have to do some suffering when it comes to skilling and some mini games. But regardless of that, the Desert is a no-brainer for the sheer fact that I have the ability to do TOA and hopefully pull myself a Shadow. And the Shadow alone with this relic, regardless of what other gear I end up getting, would just be an absolute one-man wrecking crew. The Desert also gives me access to Ancients, which makes bursting Slayer task incredibly powerful. And then I'll also have access to some really good mage gear being Virtus and then early game for Infinity. But for my final region, I will be taking Zeah or Great Corinne. And this is one because I'll have access to getting full Ancestral and Augury. Zeah is also absolutely loaded with content, some of which will be great, others will be absolutely terrible to do, but there's just plenty to do regardless. The Catacombs will go perfectly hand in hand with my Bursting Slayer task, but the bottom line, I'm picking these three regions is because I do plan to play this league with a few friends, and this region combination opens up plenty of in-game content we can do together. The only real in-game Iron Man content I would give up would be doing something like Nex or the Nightmare and TOB in Mauritania. But one, I absolutely do not like TOB. And two, I feel like it's way better to give up Asgarnia and Nex, just to ensure that my mage build is that much stronger by taking Kandarin. But those are my three regions and why I'm taking them. Now let's jump over to the relics. The starter relic I'm going to be taking as of right now is going to be Production Prodigy. The Tier 2 relic is going to be Fairy's Flight. And this one honestly caught me completely off guard, because initially leading up to today's live stream, we thought Fire Sale was going to be a part of Tier 2. And even after I saw that one get removed, I thought for sure I was going to be a Globetrotter Ami guy. Until we found out that Fairy Flight includes the Toll Leprechauns. And I'm sure there's some regions that this is going to synergize with way better than others. But the reason I'm really taking Fairy's Flight is because I like the randomness of all the different areas that there are Toll Leprechauns. And then at the same time, there are a ton of bonus teleports that Fairy's Flight might end up offering that Globetrotter doesn't whenever I do get my magic and construction all the way up to have a Nexus in my house. Then moving on to the Tier 3, I'm going to be taking the Banker's Note. I like the fact this is going to help both with PVM and skilling. It definitely does get a little bit weaker considering we automatically have Last Recall right off the rip. But at the same time, with my Relic and Region combinations right now, I feel like the Banker's Note is just ultimately better than what Fire Sale could offer me. And then for the Tier 4, I already mentioned earlier I was taking the Mage route. And for everyone after that, we'll ultimately just have to wait and see what these get revealed to be. But apart from those early game regions and relics, I already released a step-by-step starting strategy. If you have not seen that already, make sure you check that out. Otherwise, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Feel free to leave me down a comment below what your current plans are for Leagues 4. I'm pumped it's finally here, and I will catch you guys tomorrow morning with its release.